All right. Sorry for the 2-week delay. I wasn't able to read some last week, I know. But hey, good news. We have a physical book on the way, and we got the webtoon announced. So the goal is finish volume 1, book 1, like finish the first huge arc of this series before the webcomic catches up to that point. And then depending on time and what we do in the future, we might only be reading the webtoon. Probably not. We'll be reading this, but we'll see. We will see where the pendulum swings in the future. But my goal currently is still to finish like all of the Forgotten Shores arc before the webcomic and like all the books get to that point. That being said, we're gonna read chapter 30. Is it 38? Chapter 38 is called Questions in the Dark. That's on type. Chapter 38 is called Questions in the Dark. And as I'm reading that, the sun is coming in. I don't know if you guys can see that. Sleep was avoiding Sunny for a while. He sat silently in the dark, listening to the calming rumble of the waves. And this rare moment of respite, memories of the past few days came flooding into his mind. However, he was too tired to seriously think about anything. He was warm, full, and relatively safe. For now, this was more than enough. Soon, the rhythm of Cassia's breathing changed. I know I'm saying it wrong. I think somebody mentioned I'm pronouncing it wrong. That I need to figure it out quickly because it's like I'm going to be saying it wrong for a really long time at this point. But soon the rhythm of Cassia's breathing changed, indicating that she fell asleep. NEPHIS was guarding the camp, motionless and, as always, a bit distant. With her silver hair and fair skin, she looked like an alabaster statue. Statue. Sunny sighed. He struggled for a bit and then said quietly, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" NEPHIS glanced at him and shrugged. The lack of audible response clearly indicated that she remembered about his ability to see in the dark. "Sure. Would it be too personal?" Sunny hesitated. "I thought your legacies come into the spell with a whole inherited arsenal of memories. I mean, that's supposed to be your main advantage. How come you only had 3? NEPHIS was silent for a few moments. "Actually, I only have 2. The rope came from Cassie." He raised her eyebrow. "Oh, I see." Okay, so she gave her that. Realizing that her answer wasn't really an answer, NEPHIS thought for a while and added, "We lost most of our memories when my father passed away." Oh, her father. Okay. "The ones that remained were sold one by one over the years to keep the family afloat. This sword and armor came from my first nightmare, so that's how it was." Sunny realized that the fall of the Immortal Flame clan might have been more through... Wait, what? The fall of the... I forget. She was part of the Immortal Flame clan. The fall of the Immortal Flame clan might have been more thorough than he had thought. Still, something about it didn't make sense. Surely, with the clan's reputation and standing, there were other ways to make money. Without any strong reactions, NEPHIS simply said there were other reasons. Then she unexpectedly turned her head in her direction. "Can I ask you a question in return?" Sunny swallowed. "Yeah, go ahead." NEPHIS tilted her head. "How did you know that I'm a legacy?" "What? That's simple." "Simple. I heard Castor mention it. He was scolding the other sleepers to make them treat you with respect." She gave him a nod and turned away. What thoughts were hidden behind her calm gray eyes, Sunny did not know. Some time had passed before he gathered enough courage to ask the question that he really wanted to ask. Before doing it, though, he made sure that Casey was sound asleep and lowered his voice. "Can I ask you another question?" Without getting a negative response, he continued, "Why are you burdening yourself with her?" A corner of Changing Star's mouth curled up slightly. "Why? Wouldn't you?" Oh shit, he wouldn't, dude? I haven't caught up yet. Dude, no way. He doesn't want another mysticism incident. I know. It's gonna be a while until we figure it out, her pronunciation. My bad. I definitely need text-to-speech. "Why wouldn't you?" Sunny gritted his teeth, feeling the flaw pushing the truth answer out of his mouth. "No." To be honest, he wanted to believe the last moment that the answer would be yes, but one thing he had lost after the nightmare was the ability to lie to himself. Truth was merciless. It's not that Sunny did not pity the blind girl or didn't want to help her, it's just that he knew with certainty that it was simply not something he could do. He was barely able to save himself, let alone carry a helpless person across the dream realm. If he tried, they would just die together. That's kind of poetic. Still, he couldn't help but be a little disappointed in himself. NEPHIS, however, did not seem to judge him. She showed no reaction at all. After a few moments, she simply said, "Because I want to?" Because she wants to. That's not what the response Sunny expected to hear. He was pretty sure that she would either lecture him about the virtue and compassion or disclose some obscure way to make Casey's seemingly weak ability incredibly useful. However, she did neither. NEPHIS expected him to believe that she was putting her life in danger to point of sacrificing of an awakening armor type memory, because that was something she simply wanted to do. Ridiculous. At first, he dismissed her response as a non-believer, but the more he thought about it, the more disturbed he felt, because maybe it was actually the truth due to the circumstances of his life. Sunny had never really done things because he wanted to. Most of the time, he was doing them because he needed to. It was never a question of want. It was always a question of must. For him, this was a basic rule of life. But was it really, or just a matter? Oh, I scrolled down too much. Or was it a matter of perspective? Nephis had certain advantages in her upbringing, but they weren't as ample as he had imagined. She had no wealth and no arsenal of relics to empower her. However, she did not have a mentality that was different from Sunny's. It wasn't impossible for her to have the audacity to disregard. Wait, what? I cannot read. Oh my god, it's a little too early for me. I'm not used to reading this early, man. I don't do this often. Disregarded, needed in favor of something as frivolous as desire, and do things that a normal person like Sunny would never do. Like helping a blind girl simply because that was what Nephis wanted to do. Perhaps the mentality that was the greatest advantage of all. Perhaps that was a real barrier that separated legacies from the rest of them. That was a lot to think about. However, before Sunny could gather his thoughts, Nephis suddenly spoke again. My turn. Does she mean it's her turn to ask a question? Indeed, that was what she meant. Changing Star once again turned to Sunny and said, after a long pause, suddenly asked, do you know the legend of Odysseus? I'm sorry, is Odysseus canon in Shadowslave? Like the Odyssey, Odysseus. A what? Who? What sort of weird question is that? Bewildered, Sunny shook his head. Then, remembering that she couldn't see him, he said no. Nephis sighed and turned away. A few months later, she softly said, Odysseus was a hero in an ancient war. The legend some humans back then had powers akin to the Awakened. Achilles. Oh, yeah, so this is canon. Okay. Achilles was an aspect of indescribable body. I can never pronounce his name. Diomedes that was so ferocious even the god of war was wary of him. Ajax was as strong as a giant. Odysseus was not the strongest and not the bravest. However, he was the most cunning. Sunny blinked, staring at the silver-haired girl. Where did this come from? Why is she so? Why? Oh my god, my thing is over the thing. Finally, more. I know it's been a while. I'm sorry. Why is she suddenly so eloquent? Meanwhile, Nephis continued. In the end, Odysseus' cunning ended the war, and he prepared to sail home. However, the gods cursed him to endlessly wander the seas, never to return. Over the years, he survived one horror after another and lost all of his companions. Then, shipwrecked, he found himself on an island where the beautiful fairy Pisso lived. I can never pronounce his names. Changing Star, ethereal, strangely wistful voice resounded in the darkness, creating an thrilling atmosphere. Sunny couldn't help but listen without utmost attention. Calypso fell in love with Theseus and invited him to her palace. For many years, they lived together in harmony. The island was like a paradise filled with... Man, we really are just recapping Odysseus over here. The island was like a paradise filled with all kinds of wonders, delicacies, and delights. As long as loving Calypso was by his side, Odysseus was even immortal, but the longer he stayed, the more time he spent sitting on the shore, looking at the sea with bleak eyes. Nephis smiled. In the end, Odysseus built a makeshift boat and abandoned the island, leaving all its delights, the beautiful fairy, and even his immortality behind. So many questions. Why did he leave? Sunny blinked. What? What kind of mind game was that? He even considered that Nephis was mocking him, but it didn't seem to be that case. It looked like she was sincerely interested in the answer. Weirdo? He thought for a bit and then said without too much conviction, maybe it was because he was far away from home. A fleeting smile appeared on Nephis' face. Far away from home. All right. After that, she turned away and lowered her head, becoming like a statue again. It seemed like their conversation was over. Grumbling internally, Sunny laid down and tried to fall asleep. However, the image of the bleak-eyed Odysseus kept appearing in his mind. After a while, he whispered, well, did he make it back home? Soon, Nephis replied, yes. He returned to his wife and son, and they lived happily ever after. Satisfied, Sunny smiled and turned on the side, and look, at now he's happy. Now he's happy. He found out about Odysseus' happy ending. Oh, man. So Odysseus, Davy Jones? No, you guys should read it, man. I have it right here. Let me show you. You can see it right there. Right there. The Odyssey. It's right there. All right, let me fix my camera. Let me center myself. When he was already half asleep, he heard Changing Star's quiet voice once again. This time, it was barely audible and aimless, as though not directed at anyone. Odysseus was the first human to break the will of gods. In the morning, Sunny and Nephis were the first to get up. While the sun was rising and the sea was retreating, they made a fire and began preparing a simple breakfast. With Cassius still asleep, they did not talk to each other. It was like last night's conversation did not happen. However, after some thought, they somehow ended up discussing the plan for the next few days. Nephis had some ideas. I just realized this is a longer chapter. All the other chapters have been like under 8 minutes, and this is a pretty lengthy chapter. Sunny nodded, agreeing with that logic. We have exploring the east a little, but not enough to confidently make it to the next high point in a day. That's why the best course of action would be to spend today scouting a path to the group of the cliffs over there and move the camp tomorrow. He sighed. Do you have any idea where we are? Would there be a human citadel to the east? Nephis shook her head. I've never heard of a region that fits the characteristics of this place. And in any case, we have to move to find out more. We'll either find a citadel encounter or unconquered gateway or die. Hopefully they don't die. Sunny was too quick to call other weirdos. Knowing himself, I don't know, he has no right saying weirdo, dude. Or die. East is as good, but you know what? I like that part of him. East is as good of a direction as any, plus is the safest because there's a horde of monsters to the west. At that point, Cassie suddenly sat up straight. Her eyes were wide open and her face was a little pale. She looked nervous and excited. Nephis frowned. Casey, what's the matter? The blind girl turned to them and smiled. Oh shit, she's having a vision. A vision. I had a vision. Like a prophet. Wait, let me move my mouse. Like a prophetic dream, Sunny thought, trying to come to terms with the new reality of someone being able to see the future. Or the past. Meanwhile, Changing Star stretched her hand as though she prepared to summon her sword. Are we in danger? Casey energetically shook her head. No, it's not that. People. I saw a castle full of people. That doesn't sound good. She smiled and pointed with her finger. I don't know how far it is, but I'm sure that it's in that direction. Sunny and Nephis looked at each other, not knowing whether to be glad or petrified. Casey's smile, delighted finger was confidently pointed west. So we're going west? Okay. Chapter 39 is called... Come on, you guys should know this. Journey to the West. That is a good reference. In the ensuing silence, the smile slowly dissipated from Cassie's face, replaced by confusion. Feeling the sudden tension, she asked, "Oh, what's wrong?" Sunny sighed. "No, nothing is wrong. It's just that the direction is that the one we wanted to avoid." Oh, shit. So we want to avoid that play. Yo, Shadow Slave? Yeah, we're going to read for like 30 minutes. No, nothing is wrong. It's just that the direction is the one we wanted to avoid. After some thought, he added, "That's where I came from yesterday. There's a lot of scavengers down there." The blind girl's face fell. Oh. Nephis, who was quietly listening to them, gave him an indecipherable look and finally spoke. "Tell us more about the castle." A shadow of the previous excitement returned to Cassie's eyes. With serious nod, she began describing her vision. "I dreamt of a vast ruined city built on a weathered stone. It was surrounded by tall, impregnable walls. Various monsters were wandering its narrow streets. In the center of the city, there was a hill, and on top of the hill stood a magnificent castle." She smiled. "But there were no monsters in the castle. Instead, it was full of people. I think, no, I'm sure that they were awakened. Some were guarding the walls. Some were going about their lives without a care in the world. There was food, safety, and laughter." "Well, that sounds great. If the castle really existed, then all their problems would be solved." Sunny cleared his throat. "Did you see something?" Casey frowned, trying to remember. Then her face cleared. "Yes, I saw Sunny leading me through the gates of the castle. The one who said to leave her behind." Yo, what's up, dude? What's up, Alma? "Yes, I saw Sunny leading me through the gate. That means we will make it." A brilliant smile appeared on her doll-like face, beaming with so much joy that Sunny couldn't help but curl his lips. Oh, look at him being all happy. Sunless Wukong. Are we gonna have like a Wukong arc? I'd be down for that. That's still a game I'm planning to buy on Black Friday. Hopefully it goes on sale like this winter, like Christmas time, and then we can like pick up a good sale. Inwardly, however, he was stuck on a certain detail of Casey's vision. It was that when talking about reaching the castle, the blind girl only mentioned the two of them. Was there some meaning behind it? Sunny turned his head a little and secretly glanced at Nephis, trying to discern if she had picked up on that little discrepancy too. Changing Star, however, was as enigmatic as ever. Without showing much emotion, she thought for a while and then slowly nodded. "Okay, then we will go west. We will journey to the west." While the sea was still retracting, they had their breakfast and they spent some time planning for the journey and preparing to abandon the temporary camp. In the process, Sunny had a chance to get to know the girls a little better. It was then that he came to sudden realization, which almost made him explode from bafflement. That mind-blowing realization had to do with Nephis. Back when they first met in front of the academy's gate, Sunny had formed a certain impression of the confident, distant girl. Later, her behavior and the different revelations about Changing Star past only served to reinforce that impression. Nephis seemed to exhibit apart from the world. She was mysterious, aloof, and rather cool. Her what character? Her taciturn character? Her taciturn character and strange speech patterns made people interacting with her feel unnerved and rattled, often revealing more than they had been planning to. The less she talked, the more she seemed to know. That silent, indifferent confidence was arresting and sometimes even oppressive. However, the impression turned out to be completely wrong. The actual truth behind the matter had nothing to do with being cool and being coof. Cool. What did I say? Coof? Cool and aloof. I mixed the two words. I mixed cool and aloof. Taciturn equals quiet. Oh, thank you, Rami. After talking to her a bit and observing their interactions with Casey, suddenly almost fainted when he realized that Nephis was simply an incredibly, ridiculously, painfully awkward person. She's just awkward? It was as though she had no idea how to interact. It was as though she had no idea how to talk to people. Oh, that's why she's always quiet. Every time she tried to convey something, she would either use the wrong words or stumble in the middle of the sentence and fall silent. Her tone never matched what she was trying to say. Often she would forget to put correct annotations in her speech, making questions sound like statements or vice versa. Added to that was the fact that, like many introverted people, Nephis was not in the habit of openly showing her emotions. It's not that she didn't have a feeling, it's just that she was really bad at emoting them. As a result, her face always looked cold and neutral. And that's such a cool ass character trait already. That she's like awkward and shy. And I want to see like what we do with that now. That's why most of the time she simply chose to talk as little as possible or not talk at all. All that added up together, then multiplied by general weirdness, was ultimately responsible for creating the false image of a mysterious, unapproachable ice princess. Just a false hope. Oh man. When in fact she was just shy and completely inept in communicating with people. When in fact she was just as shy and completely inept in communicating with people. After coming to the realization, Sunny tried with all his might, but still failed to stop himself from staring at Nephis with wide eyes. He just barely managed to not let his jaw hang open. Let me raise the volume a bit. I'll put it a little bit louder. What the hell? That's not in line with how a protagonist should be. Oh, he's over here acting like a protagonist. In his mind, Nephis had definitely been the type of person to be the main character of any event. At the center stage, there were always confident, strong people like her and Castor. People like himself and Casey, on the other hand, were relegated to exist far away in the background. Now, however, not that line of thought was also wrong. The fact that Changing Star had problems with expressing herself and lacked social skills did not mean that she was not strong. In fact, it might have meant the opposite. She still achieved everything that she had achieved, but with the added layer of adversity, she was still dangerous. At that moment, Nephis finally noticed that Sunny was staring at her. She looked at him and, after a long pause, asked in an emotionless tone, "What?" He blinked, extracting himself with from this sudden flood of thoughts and cleared his throat. Nothing. I was just going to ask, when are we setting off? Nephis appeared to be thinking. After a while, she turned away and said, "Soon." You really can't manage more than one word, can you? Utterly bewildered, Sunny hid his emotions and smiled. All right then. Dude, I love Sunny as a character. I love that his flaw makes him so truthful, man. It really adds a different layer to a character. Usually characters are always trying to like hide and be like mysterious or like not reveal things. Like him, he can't. He just has to say the truth. In the gray light of morning, they abandoned the tall hill and ventured west, retracting their steps from yesterday. Knowing the path, the small party made quick progress. Nephis was walking in front of her sword arm, ready to strike at any moment. A bit behind her was Sunny. This time, the responsibility of holding the golden rope and guided Casey along was entrusted to him. Of course, the actual person creature leading them was his shadow. Oh, the shadow's leading them. He can't cap. Definitely, man. He can't even lie. The actual person or creature leading them was his shadow. It scouted ahead, carefully observing the labyrinth for signs of danger. The labyrinth was just like it was before, confusing and seemingly endless. Crimson blades of coral protruded from the black mud, creating a vast tangled forest. However, today something about it felt different. It was long before the shadow stumbled onto a massive hulking hungry scavengers. Alright, this is a good chapter, man. Weak point. I remember, man, like when I was a kid, the two books that kind of scared me when it came to like reading mazes and getting lost was Maze Runner and Goblet of Fire. Whenever I read the part of them being lost in a maze, I'm like, man, this shit is scary. Like, I would hate to be lost. And for a long time, I was scared, man. But that being said, chapter 40 is called... What's the chapter 40 called? Weak Point. All right, let's keep reading. I relate to these. I'm telling you, I relate to these characters, man, because when I was like, I think I was like 7 or 8 years old, I got lost trick-or-treating, and I'm like, oh my god, I got separated from my group. I sat by myself on the street, crying. I'm like, I need to ask a stranger for a phone, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't know anybody's phone numbers. And then I was like, oh my god, I found someone I knew. I was like, oh my god, I'm like running to them because I ran ahead. Oh man. I remember reading the Maze Runner books in 3rd grade. Yeah, man, they were good books. I actually never read the last book or watched the last movie, so I don't even know how it ends. But chapter 40 is called Weak Point. Halt, Sunny whispered, observing the group of scavengers through his shadow. As soon as the... Whoa, music sounds a little bit loud now. As soon as the word left his lips, Nephis immediately summoned her sword. After studying the surroundings for a second, she turned her head and glanced at him with a question in her eyes. Casey, meanwhile, only froze in place and hesitantly raised her staff. Sunny counted the monsters. 1, 2, 3, 5. Curses. The hulking beasts seemed like losers of the pack. Similar to the one he had killed, however, their wounds were not as pronounced and terrible. Each of them was much more of a threat than managed. 1 sec. All right, I'm gonna read from right here just in case. I'll take a quick phone call. I think that was more than 5 minutes. So I do apologize, but we're gonna read from right here. Curses. The hulking beast seemed. Oh yeah, we are here. The hulking beasts seemed like the losers of the pack, similar to the ones he had killed. However, their wounds were not as profound and terrible. Each of them was much more of a threat than the mangled one from before, and there were half a dozen of them at least. Okay, so it's a lot harder. There are scavengers on the path ahead, 6 of them. They're slowly moving in our direction. Nephis cast a gaze forward. There was a calculating look on her face. They're done with the carcass. Sunny thought for a moment and then shook his head. No, I didn't think so, but maybe there's not enough meat for everyone anymore. Some stranglers had no choice but to leave with an empty stomach. Nephis nodded and gestured to a nearby branch path. We circled around them. The 3 sleepers hastily moved forward and changed their paths, giving a wide bereft to the group monsters, tense and grim as they continued walking, trying to stay on course and not to get lost in the labyrinth. However, in the next hour, they had to turn in a random direction again and again, avoiding the other scavengers. The distance between them and the giant statue was not shortening at all. At some point, they were catching their breath near one of the numerous dead ends of the Crimson Labyrinth. They had no choice but to wait, since a large number of creatures was moving in the past, hiding on the spot, separating them by a long length of twisting coral passage. Sunny sighed and shook his head. We can't go on like that. At this rate, we'll never make it to safety before sunset. Casey was the first only to react. Maybe we should turn back. That was a reasonable suggestion, a reasonable development indeed. That was a reasonable suggestion. However, Sunny felt reluctant to agree. Nephis shared his thoughts with a blank expression. She said, "It will only get harder tomorrow." She was right. By tomorrow, there would be even more scavengers flooding the labyrinth. Then what should we do? Changing Star tilted her head, thinking about it. After a while, she turned to Sunny. Fight! Oh, hell no, we're not gonna fight. Fight against dozens of monstrosities? Was she crazy? Sunny tried to hide his desire as she spoke. I know that you are skilled with the sword, but have you forgotten that each one of these things is a whole rank above us? We won't survive in a fight against this many. Nephis nodded. We avoided large groups, cut down smaller ones. After a moment, she added, "If there's 1 or 2 of them, there's a chance." Sunny wanted to retort, but he couldn't find a good reason. In the end, he gave up. Fine. Nephis stared at him for a while. Then she suddenly asked, "Have you studied the corpse of the scavenger you had killed?" What was that supposed to mean? A bit of surprise, Sunny shook his head. No. He was too busy being in the pain and trying to make it to safety before the sea returned. And why would you study a corpse? Wait, I think Teacher Julius mentioned something. After a short pause, Nephis spoke. Why? Scavengers have 3 weak points on their bodies. The first one is obvious, and it's their joints. Anything that has to be flexible can't be too rigid, so there's a gap in the armor above the joints. That makes sense. By targeting the joints, you can diminish their mobility and attack capabilities. Also, studying a dead monster, one could better understand their strengths and vulnerabilities. This idea was so obvious that Sunny admonished himself for not realizing sooner. Meanwhile, Nephis continued. The second one is the same. It's where their torso connects to the carcass. If you manage to actually hit the spot, you can heavily injure your scavenger and deal serious damage to its bodies. However, unless you succeed in severing its spine, the wound won't be fatal. It'll still be able to fight for a while. Sunny couldn't help but notice the changing star's awkwardness seemed to disappear whenever she talked about things she felt confident about, like ancient heroes or killing things curious. The last weak spot is on their back, approximately at the level where the eyes are. There's a slightly concave, dislocated cavity in their armor. It is where several armor plates connected. The chitin there is comparatively thin. If you can pierce through it, you can destroy the brain directly. That will be a killing blow. That is good to know as I'm drinking my saliva. That is good to know. However, the weak spot was too high to be hit by a human. After all, scavengers were more than 2 meters tall. Oh shit, they're big. As though reading his thoughts, Nephis added, that weak point is very hard to target. Circling around these scavengers is almost impossible due to their size, speed, and attack range of their pincers. She looked at him and calmly said, if we stumble on a single scavenger, it'll be bait. My task will be to make it turn around and then restrain it. Exposing the third weak spot, your task will be to kill it. Sunny gulped. What if there's 2 of them? As you fucking do both. As usual, Nephis paused before answering, don't die. It wasn't long before there was left no choice but to attempt a fight against a scavenger. Behind them, there's a long stretch of the labyrinth with no suitable branch paths for them to turn onto. Ahead of them, there was a small clearing with only one other passage leading out of it. Not far into the passage, a massive scavenger was moving slowly in that direction. Sunny quickly described the situation and waited for Changing Star's feedback. Without much delay, she gave him a nod. We fight in the clearing. After that, Nephis gently guided Casey to the wall of the labyrinth and helped her find a place to sit. Wait here, we'll be back. After some thought, she added, soon. As Nephis moved to walk away, Casey grabbed her hand. Her face was pale and intense. Neph, you be careful, okay? Look at him calling her nicknames now. Neph, you be careful, okay? I'm seeing a little romance, all right? All right, easy. It's been I know. Don't worry. This is the last chapter. No, I know. I got you, Kemi. I know. This is the last chapter. Nephis blinked and tilted her head. I know. We're almost done. I got you. I know. Nephis blinked and tilted her head a little, then she smiled. Sure, with that, she and Sunny hastily headed for the clearing. By the time they got there, the scavenger was seconds from appearing. Sunny's shadow flew out of the passage and retracted itself to his feet. Without having to discuss things with Nephis, he quickly hid the shadows and waited there, hoping for a chance to attack. Nephis, on the other hand, strolled to the center of the clearing and calmly stood there. Her shoulders relaxed and her back straight. An elegant longsword appeared on her hand, carelessly pointing to the ground. Not knowing, I can almost see the end of the chapter. Not knowing what else to do, Sunny silently repeated her words. Don't die. A second later, the scavenger walked into the clearing. With his tiny eyes spotted Nephis, an evil light ignited in them. Without waiting for even a second, the massive monster screeched and rushed forward to the attack. Its huge pincer shot forward with terrifying speed, tearing the air into its path. Nephis swiftly sidestepped, dodging the pincer, then leaped backwards, removing herself from the path of that rushing monster. Simultaneously, I should take some notes, man, because this Omega fight is so hard at Monster Hunter, man. Simultaneously, her sword flashed in the air, cutting deep into the joint of one of the scavenger's front legs. Azure blood spattered on the ground. Of course, this small wound was too insignificant to slow the scavenger down. With surprisingly agility, it twisted and delivered a crushing sideways sweep. Nephis was just barely lying on her feet, had no choice but to deflect the blow with her sword. She managed to disperse the monster of impact by holding the blade at the right angle, but the remaining force was still enough to throw off her balance. At that moment, the second pincer calmed down. Instead of trying to regain her equilibrium, Changing Star went with a fall and somersaulted over one hand, ending up distancing herself with the monster a bit. I lost my place. Shit. Oh, her sword lashed out again. The follow-up attack followed almost immediately. However, Sunny did not care about the details anymore. The only thing he cared about was that the risky series of dodges and leaps. Nephis had managed to circle the opposite side of the clearing, forcing the scavenger to turn its back to the shadow in which he hid. It's now or never. Gritting his teeth, Sunny lunged forward before Changing Star finished her last dodge. Okay, so we got the first scavenger. Before the scavenger's pincers crashed onto her from above, before Sunny had time to become scared, he closed the distance between himself and the monster and jumped with all his might, landing on top of the carcass. And then he used all his weight to thrust a hand forward. Azure blade shimmered into his existence in his grip. I disconnected my mic. We're good. Can you guys hear me? Azure blade shimmered into existence in his grip and was immediately swallowed by the shadow. A breath later, the dark blade hit precisely into the concave, dislocated cavity in the scavenger's armor. With a crack, the chitin broke, allowing the tip of the sword to sink deep into the scavenger's body. Oh shit, we got it! The monster shuddered and then heavily fell to the ground. Sunny was thrown from its carapace, landing in the mud with a roll. That easy? It was definitely easier than the first one he killed. It was already over. As though to answer himself, the spell's voice resounded in the air. You have slain an awakened beast, carcass scavenger. Your shadow grows stronger. Oh shit, so he got its shadow. Dude, I know. I saw it's ongoing, man. I just saw it. 2,700 chapters or something like that, man. That's crazy. I'm sorry. We could have read a little bit more. I was going to read like 30 to 40 minutes. But the missus called us. 2 new chapters released every day. That's crazy, man. I find it crazy, man. He is outputting like wild, man. He is crazy. But the cool shit is, they announced a physical book and they announced a webcomic. I am 1,100,000,000% reading it because my goal was to read this until the webcomic comes out, and then like eventually maybe like in the future only read that, right, when like the web novel catches up to where I left off, depending on time, right? But like if I somehow have more time by then, or I'm done with Lord of the Mysteries and we have more time to read, then yes, of course I'll keep reading that, right? Because I also don't want to burn myself and just keep doing things every day, right? Just because I have to do other things RL, but I do want to keep reading this as much as I can, right? That being said, I am so hyped to collect Omniscient Reader Viewpoint, Lord of the Mysteries, and now Shadow Slave. Oh man, we're gonna be eating good. We're definitely eating good. We're gonna be eating good for a while now. Will you read COI? Yes, I do plan to read COI. I'll be honest though, I'm probably gonna take a good break in between COI. Not like a super long break, but definitely not like a week break. I'm thinking like maybe like a month-ish or so, maybe less before it reads UI. And during that month, I was gonna read more manhwa and manga, and then I'll be reading more Shadow Slave in between then. So hopefully we'll be reading more, and hopefully we get to the ending of like this whole first arc. I think from what I know, the first arc is about like 300 chapters. That being said, we'll be reading more Shadow Slave either later today when I'm not streaming, before the Critical Role Campaign 4 Episode 1 drops at 7 p.m. Pacific time, which is in like 8 hours. And if not, we'll be reading more tomorrow. But I'm gonna let you guys go. But yep, 350 is the end of Volume 2 and Forgotten Shorts. Okay, yeah. So I want to make sure I at least read all of the Forgotten Short arc of the web novel. I want to make sure I at least read all of that, right? And hopefully by then, the web comic doesn't catch up by the time we finish it. Knock on wood, that doesn't happen. That being said, though, we'll be reading more over the weekend. And if we don't read it tomorrow, Friday, we'll be reading more over the weekend. All right, guys. Peace.